We've got another foldable phone to talk about, and this one is coming from the fine folks over there at Huawei. Of course, if you're in the United States, pretty much if you're not in China, this is not a device that you're probably going to be able to buy without spending a crazy amount of money. So I want to get this part out of the way first. Yes, it's Huawei. No, you're probably not going to be able to buy it. Yes, it does still matter because the tech is still being pushed, and it still is something that is going to also push other competitors, other companies to do more with their devices. So, Huawei, what are they going to be doing here very, very shortly? They released a little teaser image here that basically just says Huawei Mate Xs2 April the 28th is when they're going to be fully announcing this device. What do we know about this device? Well, the fact that it says Mate Xs2, and what you can see from this image here, there's a little bit of a hingy looking thing there, and it wraps around what appears to be the outside, but also just that name in and of itself means that this is probably going to be a different kind of foldable device than what they've just released about a year ago, but also from what pretty much everybody else is making as well. Let's kind of go through their history here real quick. So back in 2019, Huawei released the Mate X, and this was a device that folded the other way around. If you look at something like the Z Fold, of course, you have a big old cover display, which is very tall and very narrow, normal stuff on the back. When you open it up, this is how the inside works. The screen, the foldable part, the fragile screen on the inside, that's where it is, and it's covered up by the device, which keeps it relatively safe. Well, with this device, this Huawei device, that was not the case. You didn't have a cover display because the screen would fold around this way. It would wrap around the outside of the device, and the result was that you had a relatively normal size cover display, and then if you wanted to take a selfie, you'd flip the thing around Surface Duo style and use your primary camera and this big screen in the back as your viewfinder. And now there are advantages to having a screen that folds around the outside, right? You don't have as much of a crease down the middle because the bend is not nearly so dramatic as it is here. And the result is that you'd wind up with a little bit less of a valley in the middle of the device. Now, this thing was pretty solid, had a 40 megapixel camera. You kind of have the camera specs here. Relatively decent camera setup, pretty similar, I would say, to what we had on the Samsung devices in terms of overall performance. 4500 milliamp hour battery, pretty good first attempt into this world. Now in 2020, they took things a step up with the Mate XS, and they kept the same design, right, where the thing's still wrapped around, but they kind of polished things up a little bit, and they mildly upgraded the camera, if I'm not mistaken. I think, yeah, we went to a 3x optical zoom, so we upgraded the camera just a little bit, but it wasn't a huge increase or improvement overall. But in 2021, they went a whole nother direction with the Mate X2, because the Mate X2 basically said, okay, we're just going to do the Samsung thing. And they put a cover display on it. They put a selfie camera and a hole punch up top. They closed it around the more fragile screen. They put a ridiculous camera module on the back of it. This camera setup is insane. It's a 50 megapixel, really large sensor, 1.22 micrometer sensor, really solid stuff there. There is a telephoto at 3x, and then there is a periscope telephoto at 10x optical zoom. 10x optical zoom, and you can see it here in that square up there. This is a crazy, really top of the line camera setup. And actually, I think that there's supposed to be, is this a depth sensor or something? Because there's 3 there, and then that one, I don't know. At any rate, really massively improved device, and it reviewed really well. And a lot of the reviews said that the camera was one of the best cameras on the market, period. So this thing was truly a real competitor to what Samsung had with the Z Fold and really any other folding device. It was one of the top of the line devices. Now, again, we have to talk about the fact that it's Huawei, and they're in this weird political trouble with the United States, and they're not actually able to use the Google Play services because of all this stuff. So they're having to build their own replacements for apps, in addition to just, being able to get it over here is really hard. It's really expensive, but still, it's a really solid device. Well, now Huawei seems ready to return to the outer folding style device. This is apparently a leaked image of the Mate XS2. We're going to have a 50 megapixel camera and a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and then an 8 megapixel telephoto. Probably going to be dropping the periscope. I don't know how that would really work here. We have a hole punch selfie camera on the front side, which I don't know why you would need to do that, because you can just flip it around again. But it's really interesting to me that they're going back to this design, the design that they used initially they're foregoing that somewhat safer design that keeps that more fragile screen tucked away inside. Does this mean that they're more confident in the durability of their ultra thin glass? We're also hearing rumors that Samsung is about to release with the Fold 4 and the Flip 4 a quote unquote next gen ultra thin glass, and a lot of these companies get their UTG from the same place. I forget the name of the company, but a lot of them order from the same place. So is it possible that this next gen UTG is strong enough that they're not worried about durability? Personally, this side here, that side of the device, seems like something that would get scratched to all hell, and then you have this big scratched portion right down the middle. I'd be a bit worried about that, but maybe this is something that they feel like has been solved. Now, here are some other images here that are apparently leaked that kind of show what's going on here. I think it's a pretty nice looking device. Definitely, it's a different sort of design, and it is much thinner when you do it this way, right? When you don't have to have two screens, you just have the one, and that's going to cut down on the thickness quite a bit. It's going to cut down on the impression of that crease because you're really not going to have a crease. So really interesting to see what's going to happen here. Now, it is also important, as I believe I responded to someone on this who asked about what the pricing and availability might be. The Mate X was around $2,400 if you were to translate it over from China to American dollars. And the Mate XS went up to $2,700. The X2 is $2,800. You're going the wrong direction on the price, right? So the Samsung devices getting cheaper as we go. The Mate devices are getting more expensive. Then, of course, if you do want to actually import the thing, it actually does get even more expensive than that because you have to import the thing, and that adds cost to it. So this thing is likely to be extremely expensive. It'd be cool to see if they could drop the price a little bit. You'd think maybe they could because it's one less screen they don't have to put in this thing, but who the hell knows? Also no periscope, which also should drop the price, but maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they're thinking to be more aggressive with the pricing. I have no idea. But at any rate, here is not just another new folding device, but one that's taking a totally different approach than what everyone else is doing. And I think that it's just interesting to see because other companies will look at this and they will see this design and they will determine if it's something that they want to do as well. Even though it's not coming here, it will still inform the decisions of other companies, of other brands making their own devices, and it will continue to push the tech forward. And of course, I had someone the other day say, why don't you talk about folding phones that people can actually buy? There are people in China. This might be a shock to some people, but there are actually a lot of people in China. And to them, this is actually important as well. So there you go, guys. Thanks for making it all the way through today's video. Let me know what you think about this design. Would you be interested in buying a phone with this kind of design, this different style? Would you be even more worried about the durability of the device personally? I'd be a little bit freaked out. I might want to wait for some long-term reviews to see if it's something that is going to be okay. Maybe you go back and look at a Mate XS review, a long-term review, and see how it held up. I think it actually did better than you probably would think that it would be doing, but I'd still be a little bit nervous. Sound off in the comments down below. I will see you on the next one, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friend.